Hello! I am making a requested video today all about foam rollers. A lot of you have asked about foam rollers and you've asked me to direct you to a video of mine where I've actually rolled my hair in foam rollers, and there are a few, but I realized that I haven't done many where I've actually rolled the set up in the last few years. I've done some pink curling videos and some rock and rollers videos and things like that, but I haven't done a foam roller tutorial in a while, so I thought I would show it to you. Now I've got linked below a video where it's called How I Roll, and it's actually a video that discusses how to do rollers in general, just general roller sets, how you actually wrap the hair up around the roller, because a lot of you have asked questions about that. It never occurs to me really how hard that is to kind of get that right, especially if it's not something that you're familiar with doing. I tend to do this when I'm not even paying any attention at all, like if I'm sitting in there watching TV or whatever, not even looking in a mirror. But I'm going to do a little bit more of a deliberate process today, just so you can kind of see how I do it and what I recommend, especially for straight-haired gals like myself. First, the elephant in the room, you are going to see the worst orange hands ever. The reason for this is quite funny. I actually, when I'm at work, tend to put products on the back of my hands and play around with them. And when I was at work, I actually did I was actually walking around the clearance counter cleaning up and realized that I had never actually tried the Radiance Body Booster, the Radiance Body Glow Booster or whatever. It's like a liquid. And you're supposed to mix it with a lotion, just your general body moisturizer, any lotion. You can mix this Radiance Glow Booster with it and it will give your body a nice healthy glow without full-on self-tanning. And it says do not use alone, use with a moisturizer. So I put it on the back of my hands by itself and then proceeded to see what it did. And this is what it did. And I have tried to get it off with everything from nail polish remover to cold cream to everything, and it is not coming off. So my hands are gonna look like this for a while, I'm afraid, and that's my fault because it said specifically do not use without a moisturizer. You're supposed to dilute it. But anyway, I do use self-tanner sometimes, but I use it very sparingly, and I use it just to kind of get some of the translucence out of my skin. I don't use it to tan. So I was just testing it out, and this is what happened. It's embarrassing, but hopefully you'll still be able to pay attention to what I'm saying here. So what I'm going to do today is go ahead and show you a standard foam roller set that I would do. I like to part my hair on the side behind my bangs and then just sort of sweep my bangs to the side when I have it rolled and have it nice and curled and fluffed around my ears. And then I also like to do sometimes parted in the middle with just a little fluff around my ears. That's my standard way of doing it. I don't ever do complicated or super interesting hairstyles, especially for day to day. So this is going to be something that's not super complicated or interesting. It's just going to be a way to show you how to roll. And the rollers I'm using today are these two sizes. This is the medium roller, and the ones I'm using are by the brand called Annie. You can get these at beauty supply stores. There's also the Goody brand, which is available at drugstores, and the Goody brand is probably a little bit better than these. The foam roller is a little stiffer on these, and it doesn't seem to soften very much. And then this is the small size roller. Now if you've got longer hair, you probably won't need this size unless you're going for a really super fluffy hairstyle, because this is great for those little short nape hairs that I have around the back of my neck. So that's why I use it. But first and foremost, for the pieces that are on the top, it's important that you keep in mind, trying to find some here. It's important that you keep in mind that on the top, you can tend to have, from these little clamps, you can tend to have a little denting. And I want this to be nice and smooth after we brush it out. So on the topmost pieces, I tend to use a pillow roller. I don't like to use a pillow roller all over because I feel like pillow rollers tend to be a little bit, they're so dense that they seem to be more difficult for them to dry. It takes longer for them to dry. The foam on the foam rollers just dries really quickly, so I don't like to use pillow rollers a lot, but I do tend to use them on the topmost sections. So I'm going to do the top section with a pillow roller. And the thing about this is, if you're going to do some back combing to give yourself some volume on top of your head, you probably will not need You probably won't need to use the pillow roller. If you're going to be back combing, you can actually hide the dents pretty well that way. But I don't tend to do a lot of back combing, especially in my day-to-day styles. It's just not my taste. And especially, I think, with bangs, I like it better when it's just a little bit more smooth on top. So I'm actually rolling up this top section with a pillow roller, twisting the ends together. And I'll be a little more deliberate on the other side so you can see the way that I actually roll it. Gosh, these hands, it's so bad. Okay. What I do is I take a bottle of water. This is just water. This is just water. Now my hair is prepped with a mousse, and the mousse that I used this time is the Sculpting Mousse by Paul Mitchell. It is not my favorite. The Sahag Sculpt mousse that I have done a review for, which I'll link below, was the best mousse I've ever used as a setting lotion. And I prefer a mousse as a setting lotion because I feel like it's just better for my thin, fine hair. However, if you can't find that, you can use the Motions Foaming Wrap Lotion. You can use Lotta Body Setting Solution, and then you would put it actually in with your water bottle. But I prefer not to do that. So I spray it just until it's more wet on the ends than it is at the root, because I don't really need it to be wet on the root. And then I take my hair and wrap it tightly around the center of the kind of thickest part of the roller. And then I roll it all the way up to the scalp and then twist the ends together. So that is a pillow roller. And the rest of these we can do with regular foam rollers. So I basically just get a swatch of hair about maybe a couple inches wide. You don't want the hair to be wider than the roller itself, because then it will kind of kink up on the ends. And you don't want it to be too much hair, it'll take too long to dry. I'm going to be sitting under the dryer, so I want to make sure it's going to be drying pretty quickly. And again, I spray the ends so that the whole thing's damp and kind of distribute that evenly through the strand. And then I take my roller and I cinch the hair tightly around the center of the roller like that. And I sort of hold the end so that it doesn't escape, because you don't want it to be cramped on the ends. And then I just roll it towards the base of my scalp and clamp it shut. And that's one. And then we'll do the same thing underneath. And I'm rolling this section on the heavy side of the part just downwards toward my ear. And then I'll show you what we do towards the back, because we want it to have more of a vintage look. I don't want it to be too much volume all over. So again, I spray the ends, distribute it through the hair, put my roller the base, and then I hold that strand, wrap it all the way up to the scalp, and clamp it. Some people like to use end papers. If you feel better about using an end paper, then by all means do that. End papers are those things that they put on the ends of your hair before you actually get a perm, like using perming rods. But absolutely you don't have to do that. I have never had any issues at all with not using end papers. And I tried using them one time and they just were a little bit of a headache. It wasn't what I was used to. So there should be about 5 rollers on this side before we move on to the back. And again, I kind of keep the hair out so that when I roll it in, it's directly on base. If you roll it down like this, you're going to end up on top of this section underneath, and you won't be able to get another curler in there. Actually, I have a little too much hair this time. So as you can see, this is absolutely not rocket science. It's very simple to do. It's just something you kind of have to get the hang of. But once you get the hang of it, you actually will find that you'll be doing this while you're watching TV. You won't have to pay attention at all. And let me tell you, once you get used to using rock-and rollers, which I have a video for, you'll find that those are even easier to sleep in. So you'll probably end up using those a lot more. Gives you a retro curl, but without the trouble of pin curls. Now, pin curls I prefer when it comes to the final look, but for every day, I don't necessarily turn to pin curls. I tend to turn to rollers. So I'm holding the hair out straight, wrapping it around, and I just hold it down so that none of it kinks out. And then that's my final curler on this side. So I've got 4 foam rollers and 1 pillow roller on the top. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this right here. So what I tend to do when I'm doing a roller set or pin curl set or anything else is to roll, to do the heavy side, then the light side of the part, and then I'll move around to the back. And pulling the hair tightly around the roller is pretty important, especially if you're going to be sleeping on your set. I discovered fairly recently from someone, probably as recently as like, 2010 or so, that some people were having an issue with their hair rollers, with their curls being crushed in the morning when they woke up. And I realized it's because they were not pulling the hair tightly enough around the center of the foam pad. What happens is as your hair dries, if you pull it tightly, as your hair dries, it will start to relax a little bit, and that will cause the foam to actually kind of shape the curl. If you don't wrap your hair tightly enough around the roller, then what's going to happen is you're going to end up with kind of a flattened curl from when you sleep on it. Okay, when you get to these sections like this where you've got a lot of layers, and I do because my hair was in a pixie and then we kind of cut it into a bob, it's not a super pronounced bob, it's not real structured, it's got some tapers to it, so it's going to be very layered, and that is an issue where you could run into some problems. Just make sure you're spraying it a little wetter, because that will make those layers stick together so you can roll them up. See how this one, the layers are coming out? Just take the individual layers as they spring out and just start rolling them as you roll in. You'll notice that you can actually get them to be nice and behaved based on pushing them in as you roll your hair. And I'm just going to keep going in sort of a halo around my hairline. You don't want to roll this back section right here, because if you do, you'll have a lot of volume there. Now, if that's what you're looking for, then by all means go for it. But I'm wanting it to be more of sort of a Ginger Rogers kind of relaxed curls around the crown. So that's why I don't ever roll that area back there. Now for these pieces right around the nape area, these are kind of shorter. So I'm going to roll these up on the blue rollers. And the blue rollers are really small, so if you don't have shorter pieces, you probably don't need these. But what this does is it keeps the pieces on the bottom from unrolling or relaxing at the same rate as the pieces on the top. We want there to be some relaxing, but these shorter pieces, when they relax, will just end up looking stringy. So I always roll these shorter pieces on smaller rollers, so that when they do relax, it will be still curly. Okay, so I have it completely rolled up now, and I'm gonna go sit under the dryer, and when I'm finished, my hair will be nice and dry, and then it will be curly, and then it will last in humidity, which is why I do a wet set to begin with. I posted a picture on Instagram of what my hair looked like after I had done a hot stick set. It was really cute for about 10 minutes, and then it just went. So this set will last me a lot better than any heated set will, which is why you don't see me doing those curling iron pin curls that a lot of the West Coast girls do, and you don't see me doing a lot of heated sets like rock and roll or like my Remington tight curls or my hot sticks, because they're not reasonable for this time of year. So that's all for now, and I'll come back in just a little while and we'll do a styling on this. And then I've also got my Belle Blossoms video. My Belle Blossoms giveaway is still going on, so make sure you check that out. And then I've also got my retrospect dress review that's going to be coming up this week, along with a link to the blog entry that I did on retrospect. So watch out for those things as well, and we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so I'm back now, and I believe this is all pretty dry. I was under the dryer for about 30 minutes. Maybe a little more. I turned it off here and there. So the first thing I'm going to do before I take the rollers out is go ahead and flat iron my bangs so that these straight pieces don't mix in with the curled pieces, because that gets kind of annoying. But as you can see, this takes like no time at all. And I purposely aimed the bangs a little bit to the side whenever they were wet, because that's generally what I like whenever my hair is curled. I'd prefer my bangs to be a little bit swept to the side. Also, I have a cowlick right here, so it just naturally kind of does that anyway. Okay, so they're kind of curled. And the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and start taking the curls out, and I basically do this in the order that I curled them up. And it's a pretty good sign if the pillow roller curl is dry, then you know that the rest of them are probably going to be dry too, because those take the longest to dry. So you just want to carefully unroll these. You don't want to yank at them or anything, because you're going to end up pulling on your hair a little too much. And sleeping in pillow rollers or foam rollers is a little more uncomfortable than sleeping in some other sets. The curlers are soft enough so that it doesn't hurt, but they can tend to pull where they're clamped. Most of these curled really well. There's a couple of pieces that didn't really curl, either because I had missed them in the rollers or because they were a little too wet. So most of this curled exactly like I wanted it to, and the couple little straight pieces will try to just blend in. But that's a general, like, just happens. All right, so all my curlers are out, and there is one piece right here that didn't really curl. It was a little too wet, so hopefully we can blend that in. The first thing I do is take a paddle brush. This is my Denman paddle brush, and I love it because it's great for breaking up a wet set. And I'm just gonna brush it all out so that all the curl lays towards the bottom of the style. And I like the top to lay smooth, so I'm gonna kind of brush as much smoothness into it as I can. Like I said, kind of smooth and hardly any volume on the top, and then I push all that curl towards the bottom. That's what gives you more of a retro vibe, or basically more of a 50s vibe. Now I'm going to take my Denman regular styling brush and start to sort of brush against my hand so that the pieces on the bottom bend inwards. And this is just sort of a very simple day-to-day hairstyle that I would do with a foam roller set. Just keeping in mind what the weather tends to be like and how that when it falls, I want it to fall as flatteringly as possible and not have to worry about maintaining any structural aspects of the style. And the cool thing about this sort of style is, as kind of tight and bouncy as it is right now, as it relaxes, it actually takes on a completely different attitude, and it's just, you know, still very attractive without being, exactly the same thing as it was. And you'll see that most of the frizz starts to sort of settle and go away. And once I get into a position that I like, I'll just spray it a little bit.
Don't go to LA to take a bus tour, and don't go to Tokyo to pose for the same photos. Paint the view from your house garden. Wake up to the sunrise on a houseboat, or have someone ask
things all the time, like your email every 10 seconds, or your ex's Instagram. But what about checking something as important?
And then if I want, I'll add a little hair accessory.
Best of all,
And because I'm going to be showing you a dress in just a moment from Retrospect that has these colors in it, I'm going to go ahead and use my new favorite orchids from Belle Blossoms. These are gorgeous, and you can double them up or whatever you want to do, and I just think they're perfect. They're so pretty. Okay, so that's the foam roller style for today. Just sort of a simple, basic style that I would do generally any day of the week. And it's something that I feel like I just took for granted that you guys could do on your own without me coaching you along. But I realized that a lot of people, because they're not used to doing a wet set, it just becomes overwhelming. So this was just a basic starter set for anybody. This works for all hair lengths. If you have longer hair, of course the style is going to be very different, but it's still going to have a very retro feel to it. And so if you do this without bangs, if you do this with longer hair, you'll still get that retro style that's great for every day, that you can use your foam rollers to accomplish, and it's just an easy beginner basic step. So hopefully this helped those of you who requested it, and keep an eye out again for the Belle Blossoms giveaway. It's still open and you can still enter. These gorgeous flowers will be part of the giveaway. And then also make sure you check out the dress review that's coming up along with the blog entry. Talk to you later. Bye.